and welcome to Systems and Solutions Product Corner.
Hi.
Today we have the Chromebook
and the Dell Venue Pro 8, and we also have a quick preview of our new Christmas desktops.
Excellent, so which one do you want to look at first?
Okay, we'll start with the Chromebook, and this is it. It's quite an interesting little product. They are pretty basic, but if all you're after is a basic laptop, then the price is pretty basic as well, which is always good. It's kind of like having a laptop, but with the Android, the mobile phone operating system on it, really. So great for things like internet and email. You've got a video camera and a webcam in the top there, so you can Skype with people and all the rest of it. They've got solid state disks in there, not a massive amount of storage space at only 16 gigabytes, but because it's got no moving parts in it, they are pretty rapid. So, you know, close the lid and open the lid and, you know, you're good to go, which really I think is one of the things that people are loving so much about phones and tablets nowadays, is the fact that rather than going pressing the button and waiting for something to happen, you know, it's just there and you can use it. I mean, they are the ideal thing for carting about with you because they're nice and light. I think I looked at the specs of them. They're just over a kilo in weight and so on, so that's pretty hard to beat.
No, that's good. That's quite light.
And actually, do you know the keyboard, because in fact it's an 11.6 inch screen on it. Oh, there we go, it's a good starter. The keyboard's actually quite a reasonable size really to type with, and for those that hate the laptop trackpads, you can plug a wireless mouse into it as well. You've got, I think, a couple of USB ports around the side on here, a headphone port, so for things like Skyping and so on, and it charges via micro USB as well. So, I mean, that's pretty handy, really, in the fact that, you know, tablets, mobile phone chargers and so on, they would charge that. So, again, it's sort of, you know, this whole idea of attempting to sort of get all your devices charging off the same thing rather than having to cart multiple cables around with you.
So would you say it was more like, would you say, you know, is it closer to a tablet rather than a laptop? Is it like a hybrid of the both, where if somebody was like to come in and wanted to buy a laptop and saw the Chromebook, what would be the advantages and disadvantages of the two? You know, where's
yeah, sure. I would say in a way they are kind of a bit like, in terms of their functionality and so on, they're a bit like a tablet with a keyboard in a way. They're sort of, the thing that is great about tablets is they're easily accessible and all the rest of it. The one thing that can be really boring with them is quite a lot of the time, unless there's an app for it, you find yourself just endlessly scrolling around web pages trying to sort of like zooming in and zooming out and all the rest of it, and, you know, and typing on them is reasonably straightforward, but at the same time, typing long messages and things like that, it just gets boring with regards to sort of, you know, touch screen. It's fine saying, yes, hi, I'm fine, thanks, I'll be late for dinner or something, but anything, you know, meaningful like an email or something, it just gets a little bit boring. And so that's what you're looking at with regards to that.
Excellent. And so if you, like you say, you know, somebody said, can I do things like type up documents on there? Is it mainly to like do things like browse the web and play games? That's
right. I mean, the main thing that you're going to be looking at there is internet and email access. You're not going to get sort of too much more out of it than that. It'll work with Google Docs. So if you're a Google Docs user, you can make use of that. That's right. Yeah. And they're also on these HP models as well. They're doing 1 year free of 100 gigabytes on Google Drive. So although you've got a limited amount of storage capacity on that, you can stick 100 gigs worth of your stuff on Google Drive and so on. Now that will expire after a year, so you'll have to either pay for it or delete it.
No, but that's good.
But it's, you know, it makes it sort of that bit more usable, and memory sticks work in it as well. So I mean, you're not, you know, and in fact memory sticks nowadays go for like 256 gig.
So for the very basic user, emails, browsing the internet, and not really wanting to do much else than that, and a couple of docs, and, you know, if you've got Google Docs already, that's pretty much something that you'd want to have. How much are we looking at?
They're $175, so
that
is
really good.
Stunning price, really, isn't it?
That is really good. That is really good. Excellent. Right, so
The next thing,
well,
similar fashion, is the Dell Venue Pro 8 tablet. It's an 8-inch touchscreen tablet, and it's using Windows 8. And that's not quite as bad as it sounds. No, do you know what? Actually, sort of, in all fairness to Microsoft, there is Windows 8 becomes much more usable on the things like the touchscreens and so on. It was, you know, the reliance upon touchscreen in a way was their oversight when it came to desktops and laptops and so on, because it's just not the way people use things like that. But when it comes to the tablets and so on, you've got no choice but to touch the screen, and then it works pretty well actually. In a way, your saving grace with that type of thing is actually if you have a Windows 8 laptop and a desktop, you can actually synchronise a lot of stuff between your laptop and your desktop, and it's not a case of sort of like, oh, it just about works and so on. It's the full version of Windows 8 on there, so it's as you would get on a desktop computer. You can use things like Microsoft Office on there.
Wow.
You know, it really is a fully functioning tablet.
Because you can get ones that are just pretty much, it's in a tablet form, but it limits you on what you can do. So having the full operating system on there is like literally having a mini computer.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, and you know, I think it's sort of one of the things that often gets missed with regards to it is actually, this is one of the areas that I am quite a fan of Windows 8, is on the tablets. You just think they've got a good product there.
Yeah.
It's much more advanced than Android, and it's much more advanced than iOS and so on. Just based on the fact that it is a desktop operating system, really.
Yeah.
You've got the synchronization there, so if you sign in with the same live account on your laptop and your tablet, all of your settings get transferred onto the tablet, just synchronized over the internet. Specs wise, these are very, very impressive, especially at the price. They've got a quad-core processor on them, 64 gig of built-in storage, so you've got a massive amount of storage space just built into the thing.
Yeah.
It will take up to 64 gig micro SD cards as well, so I mean you've got bags of room there really in terms of storage space. You would, do you know what? You'd probably struggle to fill that amount of space up on a tablet. You got a front-facing camera, which for like things like video chats and Skype and so on, and that's 1.2 megapixels, and then a 5 megapixel camera on the rear. So
front and back. Then.
That's right. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So you get nice clear photos out of it, and one of the other things as well that you don't get with things like your iPad are it's got a micro USB socket on it as well.
Oh, right.
So that's for the charging side of things, but you can also plug in micro USB
so that
sticks and so on.
Yeah, the little product that we did last time.
That's right, that's what we looked at last time. They would work on it. You can even, I've been told by my dad, who has one of these, you can even plug in a USB hub into it and run a few things off of it that way.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you bear in mind with it, the micro USB port is also used for the charging. So if you're using stuff off the micro USB port, you can no longer charge it.
No.
But, you know, that's really is a minor consideration.
Yeah. Wow.
And this also comes with a case as well.
That's actually quite a nice
little, sort of like being modelled by. Absolutely, you know, with these sorts of things, you really want to put them in the case. It might not be the most protective thing in the world, but it's certainly sort of, you know, sat in a bag. It protects it from getting scraped and knocked and all the rest of it. And it also helps with regards to, you know, if you've got to watch something on it, you've got a stand there as well. And actually using it on the go as well, you've got this sort of like elasticated style strap, so you can stick it to your hand like that.
Oh, do you know what? Right, that is probably the biggest advantage. That's brilliant. Because the amount of times I've ever hold my phone, I'm like, oh my god, my arms are like getting so tired.
yeah, absolutely.
That woke me up. No, excellent. Yeah. And how much are we looking at one of these for?
They are $199.
Again. Just both products under £200.
Absolutely.
That is really good.
Do you know, as a tablet of that sort of specification, you would be hard pressed to find. As a comparison, not necessarily a fair one, perhaps, but you know, as a comparative price and so on, in terms of specification and so on, slightly lower res screen on this one, but the iPad Mini 3, similar spec, 64 gig model, would set you back. I think the cheapest I managed to find it was about 339 or so.
Wow, so huge
So
difference.
I know you could almost have 2 of them for that.
Yeah, one in each hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant, excellent. Right, we'll be looking at some other bit of products in our second video. So keep in tune with everything that we're doing, and yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to the Death Corner. You let the dogs out. Hello. Hello, and welcome to part 2. We've got some desktops, I believe.
That's right.
Go for it.
Yeah, we'll be looking at our Christmas desktops today. So at the moment, I mean, pretty much all of our computers really leave here are built to specification and so on. Really, we just put these sort of cookie cutter ideas together for people. So in terms of the specification, we can add things, remove things, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything can be done to these, really, within reason. But, you know, if you've got a specific need, you think, I have absolutely got to have one of those, the latest graphics card or whatever, it can go in there.
Excellent.
But, yeah, these are our Christmas desktops. We've got them in 2 varieties this time round, and they are an AMD system and an Intel-based system.
Oh, okay, cool. Two chips.
That's right, yeah, really to suit sort of like 2 different budgets, really. Do you know what? The main crux of what we try and do with regards to the custom desktops and so on is it's not going to be a product that you can walk away from the likes of our larger competitors.
Those people.
Those people, yeah. You know, and not to denigrate the products that they sell, but you know, really what we're trying to do is achieve a real top quality product, and that is across a range of budgets.
Well, that's it.
You know, we don't sacrifice in terms of quality and so on. Specification may decrease because, let's face it,
you have to fit it in the budget, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But in terms of quality parts, it's not sort of like, oh yeah, no, we'll cut this corner and we'll make sure that they don't sort of know about that.
No, absolutely. You know, and putting the actual machine together ourselves, being technicians, obviously is another advantage. We can, you know, help with future, you know, tweaks and updates and everything. We're pretty much there from start to finish, aren't we?
Yeah, very much so. And you know, one of the things that I always try and do, because it's one of the things I've always loved about desktop computers, is try and build a little bit of future proofing in it. I mean, it's a marketplace that you never know what's going to happen next year, from one year to the next, really. But by and large, you know, these things can, you know, these computers are very easy to be added to. So if you want to add more RAM later on down the line, or other components and so on, there's room to do that. It's not like you're stuck with what you got. Exactly. Which is important. But anyway, taking it off with these 2 desktops. Right. First off, we've got the AMD system, which are sort of like our mid-range system. It utilises that's been out for a little while now, actually, the AMD A series of processors. They're a quad-core processor, but they've also got quite a decent graphics card built into that processor. In fact, actually, it is one of the area, the on-processor graphics is one of the area where AMD are really leading the field, actually. Their processors aren't quite as powerful as, say, Intel's are. Yeah. You know, they've been flagging behind there for quite some time, but actually the graphics side of things is very good. Now, I know that probably doesn't sound like it will appeal to most, but one of the things to be very wary of, especially in this day and age, you know, you look at something like the internet, how much we have seen that change, even in the last few years. And as broadband speeds shoot up, whilst that might not feel like it's happening to most, but as they do shoot up, more and more content's going to be delivered over the internet, over the you know, media, and all of those types of things, and all of those things do benefit. There is so much sort of hardware rendering done nowadays on the internet. I think it's been around since IE9. Yeah. The option to render using your graphics hardware and so on. Yeah. So it definitely helps. You know, it's not sort of like, it's not solely for the gamers and so on.
No.
The other thing that's interesting for people who are interested in playing games but are maybe on a bit of a shoestring budget is you can combine the AMD A8 processor with a Radeon, who are AMD own. Now you can combine it with one of their graphics cards, for dual graphics cards essentially, for a little extra
okay, right, so like in a dual fashion where you would have both kind of contributing
That's
to the
right.
power of the
Yes.
graphics rendering.
Yeah, so if that's the thing you're into and you just don't have that much money to spend on a real expensive gaming system, the A series of processors are, you know, worthy of consideration. It's probably worth popping in. It might, you know, if that's your thing, going up to the A10 series of processor, the extra money's worth it. You can put in slightly more powerful graphics cards with them. But anyway, on top of that, we've got 8 gigabytes of RAM in there. So that is going to be more than enough for running plenty, you know, as many things as you could want open, really. I mean, I'm sort of like relatively famous around these parts for having hundreds of windows open. I think my record's about 40 or so.
Yeah. The amount of tabs you can fit in a screen, I think, is just like has to go in the Guinness Book of Records.
It's quite impressive, actually, isn't it? It should be a record if it's not. And, you know, and even that, sort of like, I've got about sort of like, I think 6 gig on my machine or so, and I'm normally touching around about 5 gigs being used and so on. So I've got some headroom, so with 8 gig on there without ridiculous tabs, antics.
The amount of RAM you can get these days, and the you know, the recommendations is just like quite a huge gap. Really.
Absolutely, yeah. I think sort of like 4's becoming the, you know, fast becoming the norm really, and has been for a good number of years now. So we just sort of like buck the trend and add a little bit more in there. It doesn't cost that much more to do. Really.
Exactly, and like you said, it's future proof. You know,
exactly,
it definitely helps you if you decide to use any extra bits within the machine. So
yeah, very much so. We have gone for a 1 terabyte hybrid hard disk on this. These are really quite interesting, actually. They are a normal mechanical hard disk, so you've got plenty of storage space on there, a terabyte. And they also include their own sort of RAM in a way, so they've got like a mini SSD on there. And what that does is that optimises, sort of like uses self-optimising technology for building the files that are often used. So things like your Windows loading files and stuff like that. That gets stuck in this SSD cache effectively that it has. So rather than having to constantly read from the hard disk and go away and retrieve this information, it is stored on that SSD cache. And that's an 8 gig cache. So it's got plenty of room for storing, you know, information on it.
So long and the short of it is, it's because of the type of hybrid technology it's got in there. It's faster than a standard drive, or what we would call a standard drive that we already know for many years. And then the one step up from that is the SSD that we were talking about in the other notebook.
That's right, yeah, in the Chromebook and so on. That's right, yeah. So they're a nice balance of having plenty of storage room, and they're at a good price point as well, really.
Excellent.
All of our machines can come with either Windows 7 or Windows 8, depending on what you want to go for there, really. We've got a 400 watt power supply unit in there, which is going to be more than enough to run this machine, and a little bit of room for sort of doing upgrades and so on. And really, I mean, this is especially sort of what you're not going to get elsewhere, is we offer a full setup service on the computer. So data transfer, email account setup, do you know what, as you need it set up. So when we say, here you go, here's your computer, you can take it home, plug it in, and you're as close as to where we can get you to your last left off and so on. There's no sort of faffing around going, oh, where's that? And all the rest
and having
of it.
to rebuild it all yourself.
Exactly.
We literally set your emails up, set the programs up, make the desktop look like your old desktop, you know, all the icons in the right place, so to speak. How did we get there as best we can? So it's so much easier to transition from old to new.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
But if you can't even be bothered to plug it in yourself, or you don't want to, or you're unsure and you want somebody to come and set it up on the internet for you and things like that, do you know what? Just to make sure the whole package is working, we've got a deal for you. The price of the unit, including the sort of data transfer, the setup and so on, and you coming to collect it from us and plug it in at home yourself, is $695. For Christmas, we are doing the monitor offer, as starred here. So that's a 24-inch full HD monitor. These Asus monitors have had a really good write-up, and in fact, actually, like most of their stuff, do you know what? They do a pretty good job of sticking electronic components together, actually. I've been quite impressed with them. So that's included, and also home delivery and setup.
I'm anticipating, I'm waiting for you.
Yeah. And that is that would bring the total package to £895, and that will save you a bare minimum £43 on the usual retail price.
So that is really good, because obviously having somebody just bring it out to your home, and I've done many deliveries here and set up for computers at people's houses, and it's just it's knowing that everything's going to be literally running smoothly, and when we deliver, we stay there for a bit, make sure that you understand everything that's going on. And then once you're happy, then we leave, obviously within reasonable time, because you always have lots and lots of questions to ask. So yeah, we do this thing where if you have some more queries after we've left, then we're always there on the end of the phone just to answer a few more questions. And it's bound to happen. It's
Absolutely.
bound to, because it's a new system, so you're just getting used to everything. But it's a pleasure to be able to hand everything over so smoothly and see.
Oh, absolutely. It's like you said, it's that peace of mind thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So the next desktop is our i5 Christmas desktop. The i5 has starred in our desktops for quite a while now, actually. In fact, actually, it's been a pretty fair. They've had a pretty fair run, the old A8 and the i5 in our desktops, and that is because, do you know what? At both of their respective price points, they are such good products.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the i5, for what most people require from a computer, it gives you speed now, but it also gives you the longevity that most are after for, without underspending now. Because the difference between the sort of like the processor models, they're all very intelligently priced. You've got about 50 quid to save on the model down or something like that. There's no point in saving 50 quid, because you'll just be costing yourself at least £100-200 more in the future. But likewise as well, actually, the jump from i5 to i7, the most have got nothing to really gain from it, and so on. i7s are fantastic if you're somebody who's, it's not even really aimed at the gamers. You're looking at people like video editing, photo editing, people who are doing lots of very intensive tasks at once, really.
Exactly, and it's quite easy, well, I'm going to say quite easy, but it's quite a common misconception that, high-spec computers is for gamers only,
Exactly.
And it's not, because you can get quite, cheap computers that are aimed at gamers that run really, really efficiently for the games that they want. It really is the high-end rendering and processing that you can get of like you said, videos and photos, because of the amount of detail within what you're doing. So you're absolutely right,
Yeah, they are very processor driven, so as a result of which, But anyway, back to the i5. So the i5 desktop, we got the 4690 in there, which is the sort of top spec i5 processor. There's another one up from it slightly in a way. It's the K version, which means it's unlocked for anybody who wants to sort of like try and squeeze a bit more power out of them. But it's just not our marketplace. We can stick them in there if you're after that type of thing, but we keep the cost down by going in that direction.
Exactly.
Again, 8 gig of RAM in this system as well. Again, it's the type of thing, really, sort of like 8 gig sort of. It seems to be a sensible amount to go for, really. Nobody's, again, coming back to the whole thing, sort of, certainly in most desktop computing environments, you're not going to come across somebody using that. And actually, even in games, really, you just don't use RAM all that much, actually. No. 8 gig, it seems to be like that sensible limit. Yes, you could go up to 16 and it wouldn't cost you too much more, but when you ain't going to use 8, why go for 16?
No, exactly.
Really, the big change that we've got in this and previous months is the solid state disk. We've been using these in our sort of desktop of the month for a little while now, but we've actually been using them in a conjunction with a secondary storage drive, because they've been the 240 gig, and with a recognition of the fact that, do you know what, 240 gigabytes just isn't that much space these days. However, the price of SSDs has just fallen massively recently. These, so we've got a 480 gig solid state disk in there.
Wow.
Absolutely. Do you know what?
Double.
And these are now the same price as the 240 gigs were at the beginning of the year. They have just fallen off. You were absolutely. You were paying close to £1 a gigabyte at the beginning of the year for a solid state disk. So not quite that much money, but around about sort of like 80 to £1 thereabouts, depending on the product and so on. And now it's just ridiculous. It's sort of like it's fallen right down to about sort of 50p, that sort of level, which is a good thing to go for, really. So that would take care of your storage, operating system, and I tell you what, the speed of solid state disks really can't be overstated. They are impressive. I mean, they make a computer feel as fast as a computer should be.
Exactly. It's probably been the slowest, component compared to all the others in a machine for many years. And even though the processors are getting faster, the RAM's getting faster, everything else is getting faster, and this has just been lagging behind for so long.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And now that it's caught up, it's like, oh my god. It's like, how fast does this machine work?
I know. Do you know, we've been building these with SSDs in them, for close to 2 years now, I think.
Yeah.
And I still get a real sense of satisfaction when I see them boot up. It's the fact that, that one of those videos that we've done and that we've shared on the website is you can actually be in Windows and it's not turning the machine on, it's actually restarting the machine, so it actually goes through the whole shutdown and boot cycle within like 22 seconds or so, I think it is. I mean, that is remarkable. That's just, just my computer at home is reasonably fast, but it still takes a good couple of minutes to turn on and be load into Windows. And that's 22 seconds with clicking on Internet Explorer, and Internet Explorer going, yes, hello.
Exactly, and that's, and it contributes to everything else being faster.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially sort of now that we've moved away from, in this one anyway, now that we've got the 480 gig SSD on there, everything's on there, photos, documents, the whole lot. If you need more storage space, of course, like an extra drive can be stuck in there, and that's, hard disks are pretty cheap these days, with terabyte disks being around about the sort of £75-80 sort of mark and so on, so it really doesn't add a massive amount of cost to the PC. As with the AMD one, you've got choice of Windows 7 or Windows 8 on there, really to suit what you want to do with it. Makes no difference to the cost or us. The one thing to bear in mind actually of Windows 7 is it is in relatively short supply. It's now effectively the home version has gone end of life, so Microsoft are no longer supplying it to people. Everybody's got loads of stock because Windows 7 was popular. So it's still pretty reasonably available, but bear in mind it's sort of going much beyond, going into the new year, the availability is going to become scarce, and it will drive up the price of a computer if you want a Windows 7 machine.
Absolutely.
The next thing we've stepped up in this one over the AMD one is it's got a 630 watt power supply unit. Really, this is stepping up the power supply units. What we try and do with the power supply units is I'm a power supply unit snob, and the reason I'm a power supply unit snob is because people spend, for example, people spend loads of money on all these different components, and then they go and stick a £10 power supply in a computer. You are effectively risking every single component in your computer with a cheap power supply. If your power supply goes pop, as happens with the cheap ones more often than not, you will potentially damage every other component in there. It could, for the sake of a £10 power supply unit, could cost you a new computer.
Yeah, completely.
Easily. And do you know what? I've learned my lesson doing that as well.
That's talking from experience.
That is a man talking from experience. Honestly, I always used to sort of go, oh well, who cares? And it, and a cheap power supply unit killed one of my computers. And that was,
Sounds like a film.
I know, it does, doesn't it? It's like a £200 graphics card, a relatively expensive processor for the sake of a £10 power supply. So don't do it. Anyway, so 630 watt power supply in there. That is going to allow people, again, sort of like, we don't we're not a shop that necessarily sort of specifically caters to gamers and so on. We are pretty run of the mill. I just want a family desktop type of thing, really.
Yeah.
And a good quality one at that. But if you wanted to, this is sort of, this is going to be sort of around about the sort of specification you're looking at for a decent gaming machine. Obviously, sticking a graphics card in there, and with 630 watt power supply unit in there, you're going to be able to get sort of like the latest graphics cards on there, things like the 980s and the series before that as well. So
yeah, because graphics cards take quite a bit of juice.
They certainly do. I mean, they have a tendency to get sort of more efficient between series and so on. Like I think the 980s now are sort of like specifying a minimum of 500 watt power supplies, whereas the 780s before them, which are starting to fall in price and are still a very good graphics card, require a minimum of 600. So you've still got some leg room to play with there.
Yeah, okay.
Relatively small case on there and so on. Again, the cases, because we're sticking these things together, it really makes, we can stick it in a massive case if you really want, but most people are after a relatively tidy looking box to stick on their desk or underneath the desk and keep it relatively discreet. And as with the AMD one, it's all, the price is with full setup. We don't leave anything out. This is the side of things that is, less so the specification and so on, but especially this side of things. This is really where it makes a big difference coming to someone like ourselves, because you can sit down with somebody, you can talk to us, you say, this is what I want to achieve with my computer. I want to transfer this over, I want to do this, and actually I want to add this new thing in, really. And that's what we can accommodate for in our bespoke setup there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've already mentioned that having that kind of service, it's not just a bonus. It's a huge bonus.
Yeah.
Because you could easily pick up one already built specification, blah blah, take it home and then go, right, where do I start?
Absolutely.
How do I make sure everything is as it should be and easier for me to work on? So there we go.
Yeah. Okay, and as with the AMD Christmas desktop, we're also running the same offer on the i5 desktop. A little bit more money to save on this one, but of course the Asus 24-inch high-def monitor, which, by the way, you've got all of the inputs you could possibly need on it. You've got built-in speakers, you've got VGA, DVI, and HDMI. So it will accommodate all sort of like formats of signal. And obviously somebody coming to your house and delivering the thing and setting it all up for you, making sure it works at home on internet and all the rest of it. And that the normal price of the i5 desktop is $999, and including the special offer is $1,150, and that will save you on this particular machine, £93 if you go for that.
I was going to say, because that's quite from $999 to that, and including that, and then
exactly.
That is a lot. That's very good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to our offers and looking at the products that we've got, and really hope that you enjoy the Christmas season.
Absolutely.
And I hope that we see you before then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, quite.
and just thank you so much for watching our YouTube clips. Thank you for being our customer, because I'm sure we're going to have regular customers that will be watching this video.
Yeah.
And just want to wish you all a very happy Christmas and good New Year. But I'm sure we'll see you before then.
Absolutely. Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.